All right, let's just get right into it. Have you had that feeling, ever since 2020, that something is just fundamentally off? Kind of like the world rebooted, but on a slightly buggier operating system. If you have, you're definitely not alone. It's this widespread, uncanny sense that reality itself just sort of slips sideways, even though on the surface everything looks pretty much the same.
There's actually a perfect metaphor for this, and it comes from Stranger Things, the Upside Down. It's not some far-off apocalyptic world. No, it's a parallel dimension right on top of ours. The streets are the same, the houses are there, but the rules are all wrong. It's dark, it's distorted, and it just feels incorrect.
So that's the big question we're going to try to unravel, right? Why does it feel like we're all living in a slightly off-brand copy of the world we used to know? Let's dig in. Okay, so let's really unpack this upside-down metaphor. We're not talking about monsters, of course. We're talking about a world where the basic logic has started to fray. The places we know are still here, but the connections between them, the reason things happen, it all feels unstable, unpredictable.
I mean, just think about it. Daily life is back for the most part. People are going to work, schools are open. But for so many of us, the whole experience just feels hollowed out. Social interactions can feel a little thinner, a little more brittle. It's almost like we're all just actors going through the motions in a world that's lost its structural integrity.
And look, this isn't just some vague feeling. It's not all in our heads. There's actual evidence for this. These glitches in our collective reality. You can actually measure the shifts in how we experience the world.
Let's start with time. Get this. In just the first 6 months of the pandemic, a whopping 65% of Americans said their sense of time had become completely distorted. Weekdays, weekends, what was the difference? Entire months just seemed to vanish into this weird fog.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's this bizarre paradox where time feels like it's compressing and stretching out all at once. 2019 can feel like it was yesterday and also 100 years ago. And believe it or not, this widespread experience actually has a clinical name.
It's called temporal disintegration. Basically, the sheer monotony of lockdown created a sort of time blindness. It cut us off from the normal rhythm of life. When all the usual landmarks, vacations, holidays, even just weekends disappear, so does our ability to place ourselves on a coherent timeline. It all just falls apart.
But this whole thing went way deeper than just our perception of time. It was a shattering of something much more fundamental, our ontological security. And that's really just a fancy way of saying our basic, unconscious trust that the world is stable and makes sense. When you see that everything you rely on can just evaporate overnight, you have this terrifying realization that the solid ground you thought you were standing on was maybe never solid to begin with.
So what happens when that foundational trust cracks? What do we as humans do? We scramble. We start desperately searching for a new story, any story really, that can make the chaos feel like it has some kind of order again.
And this is exactly where conspiracy theories get their fuel. If you look at them from an analytical perspective, they're not just random delusions. They're actually functioning as meaning stabilization systems. They're frameworks people grab onto to rebuild a sense of order and control, especially when the official version of reality just doesn't feel believable anymore.
I mean, we all watch this happen in real time. And each of these different conspiracy clusters met a very specific psychological need. If you felt there had to be some secret master plan, well, there was QAnon. If you needed the chaos to be intentional, not just random, you had Plandemic, a search for absolute moral clarity, a clear good versus evil story, the Wayfair theory, and an explanation for fears of authoritarian control, the Great Reset. They were all just attempts to draw a map onto a world that suddenly felt completely unmappable.
But what if the real root cause isn't just the trauma we all went through, but about where that trauma left us? This brings us to what might be the single most important concept for understanding this feeling. It's an idea from anthropology called liminality.
The word liminality literally comes from the Latin word for threshold. Think of it like being stuck in a doorway. You're not in the old room anymore, but you haven't quite stepped into the new one either. You're betwixt and between. It's a temporary, super disorienting phase that's supposed to lead to transformation.
So, any classic rite of passage has these 3 simple stages. First, separation. You leave your old life behind. Second, liminality. That's the doorway, the in-between phase we just talked about. And third, reincorporation. You return to society with a new identity and new status. Now here's the kicker. In 2020, the entire world went through stage 1 and 2, but we never really finished stage 3.
And that, right there, is the heart of our problem. We are stuck on the threshold collectively. We're living in a permanent state of transition,
a global rite of passage that never actually concluded. And that perpetual in-betweenness, that's why everything feels so unstable and so unreal.
Now, as if being stuck in a doorway wasn't weird enough, all of this is happening at the exact same time as another massive, almost stranger-than-fiction transformation that was unfolding right under our noses, a change that makes the world we live in now fundamentally different from the one we thought we knew.
Let's take artificial intelligence. For most of us, it feels like AI just sort of appeared out of nowhere around 2022, right? But the operational reality is just startling. The very first chatbot was created way back in 1966. By the 1980s, AI was already an invisible core part of our military and financial systems. So the tech we're seeing now isn't some sudden invention. It's just the public surfacing of 60-plus years of development that was happening just out of sight.
This quote really says it all. The alien did not arrive. It surfaced. Think about that for a second. This wasn't something new landing on Earth. This was us finally noticing the non-human intelligence that was already deeply woven into our world, quietly co-authoring our reality from behind the scenes the entire time. And that's what makes this such a uniquely bizarre revolution. You can't observe it from the outside because it's a revolution of perception itself. It changes the very tools we use to see the world. It's like trying to see your own glasses. You can't. You're always looking through them. So this just amplifies that liminal state. We're stuck on the threshold, and just as we're looking for the door to the new room, the very nature of what it means to see is changing under our feet. We aren't just watching a change. We're inside the system that's being transformed.
So yeah, it really feels like we've all been to the upside down. The old world isn't coming back, and that gate between then and now, it's staying open. So the question is no longer about how we get back to the way things were. The real question, the only one that matters now is, okay, we're here, in this strange, new, transformed reality. What do we choose to build?